Good afternoon. Welcome to this meeting of the Licensing Subcommittee. If I can call for the nominations for chair for the meeting.
I propose Paul Kohler.
Thank you very much. Is that seconded?
Pauline Cowper.
And you. Thank you very much. Over to you, Chair.
Welcome everyone to a meeting of the Licensing Subcommittee. I'm Councillor Kohler. I'm joined by my colleagues, Councillor Curtin and Councillor Cowper. This is being streamed live on YouTube, hopefully, and the three councillors will be on camera, on screen all the time, and I think others will come and go as they talk and interject. If people have any technical difficulties, please let us know either by waving your hand or entering something in the chat function. If anyone loses contact, we will adjourn and try and get you back up. I should ask for declaration of interest. I have no declaration, no interest to declare. Do Councillor Curtin or Councillor Cowper have any declarations of interest?
None.
Is that true, Councillor Cowper, as well?
Yes.
Thank you. Right, Amy, I'll ask you again, could you run through those present, please?
Of course, Chair. So you'll see on the screen that, as Councillor Kohler has already introduced, we have the three councillors on the subcommittee this afternoon. We also have our licensing officer present, our legal officer.
Hello.
We have Mike Stallard here for the applicant. We also have a number of interested parties. We have Jane Conlin, Sarah Phillips, David Forwards.
Good afternoon.
Mr. or Mrs. Abbott, and we also have Mr. Hutchins dialing in on the phone.
Hello.
We also have myself clerking the meeting and two other Democracy Services officers doing some technical things in the background. Thank you.
Thank you, Amy. We'll be following the hearing procedures, a copy of which were included in the notice packs. I'm now required to ask the legal advisor for his initial comments.
I have no further comment to make. Committee, as usual, read the papers in the pre-meet, and that's it. I didn't give legal advice during that meeting.
And over to the licensing officer for a technical point.
I don't think there's anything technical to add, just obviously an explanation of what Mr. Stollard meant by standard hours in his additional information, and that there was an additional condition potentially put forward with regard to live bands in the upstairs room, apart from one instance per year around Halloween. But I'm sure Mr. Stollard will go into that himself.
Thank you. And now, if we move to Mike Stallard as the applicant, if you would give us a short presentation, followed by questions by interested parties, and then any members of the committee. Over to you, Mike.
Thank you, Councillor. Hello, everybody. I'm Mike Stallard. I'm the volunteer bar and lettings manager at the old Rutlishians and have been for quite a number of years now. We recently switched from being an association to being a charity. And as part of that, the trustees reviewed a lot of the processes involved in running the organisation. And one of those areas was the licensing. We took advice from the Rugby Football Union approved solicitors, Poppleston Allen, and their strong recommendation was that we switch from a premises certificate to a full licence. The main reason for this was to ensure that all the licensable activity within the club, whether members or non-members, was properly covered. And that's what this application is all about. We have no interest in extending the hours of the club or increasing significantly the activity within the club. It is simply to make sure that everything is covered as properly as it should be. There was, I think, from the legal officer or the licensing officer, a comment about the hours. If the hours remain as they currently are, which is 11 o'clock cut off most of the time except 10:30 on Sunday, we are perfectly content with that. There was some early discussion in our application about extending that to midnight, simply to allow ourselves to have an occasional late license rather than have to apply for a temporary event notice. if it's felt best to leave it at 11 o'clock and we use temporary event notices as and when, that's absolutely fine. It's a handful of events a year and we'd be very happy with that. We've also already in discussion agreed about live music outside, restricting that to the Rutfest once a year. And I have asked for a similar dispensation for an indoor live music festival on or around Halloween, involving live bands cutting off at 11. And if that's the case, then we'd be very happy to commit to no more live bands in the hall upstairs.
Thank you. Any questions now from interested parties? David, forward. You're on mute.
Thank you, Chair. Can you hear me now?
Yep.
Thank you. I thank Mike Stallard for offering the no live bands upstairs apart from Halloween. That's very helpful and very reassuring, and I'm very grateful of that. I live right opposite the old Ruts building, and you'll have seen in your pack photographs, one of which shows the road with the buildings adjacent, the buildings being our houses and the old Ruts clubhouse. You'll have also seen a picture of the clubhouse from my bedroom window, so you can appreciate if there is noise, then myself and my neighbours are going to hear it quite clearly. So we're grateful for the live band concession and the live music outside concession, but I'm a little bit puzzled, Chair, still. Can I establish whether or not we have agreed that the hours are now to 11 o'clock, the opening hours? Because if we have, I don't need to make any further comment. If we haven't agreed that, I'm going to be arguing that that should be agreed and that should be the case. So can I just ask for clarification on that, please?
Could the licensing officer confirm this? My understanding is what the licensing officer said was, because there was the application was to 11 o'clock initially, that the reference to 12 o'clock later has no bearing. Is that what you told us, licensing officer?
No, the application really is for opening hours Friday and Saturday until midnight. Excuse me. Other license activities would seem to finish at 11 or before, but my query was with regard to the additional information that Mr. Stollard put in, which, if I can just pull it up, if I can find it again, which I probably can't. Okay. And that was on page 3 of the supplementary, and it said under hours, which is on his first page, we have requested that the standard hours of the license finish at midnight. And I didn't understand whether he was trying to say he wanted to increase his hours to finish at midnight.
Sorry,
Or I didn't understand what he meant by that. That was my query.
maybe I can help here. The application in relation to alcohol is to 11 p.m. Monday to Saturday.
Yeah.
The opening hours for Friday and Saturday are midnight, up to midnight. Apart from that, Monday to Thursday would be to 11. So the point I think we're getting to is that the application as a whole is basically going up to 11 for alcohol, apart from Fridays and Saturdays, where there's going to be an opening a little bit later, which I suppose, if you look at it, could be a sort of drinking up period. It's fair to say that the actual licensable activities would all stop at 11 by the looks of it, unless of course they've stopped an hour earlier. And that's what, so effectively live music, recorded music, dance, similar items end at 10, Sunday to Thursday, and 11 Fridays and Saturdays. So it is correct to say that most of the actual licensable activities will end by 11 p.m, but there is an opening period from 11 p.m. until midnight on Fridays and Saturdays, which effectively is sort of It's not a time when you're meant to be doing licensable activities. It's more like a sort of drinking up period. Is that fair, Mike?
Absolutely. I want to emphasise, and I can't emphasise this hard enough, the club has no desire to extend its opening hours past 11 o'clock at the weekend. Absolutely, or at any time. Absolutely zero. The club doesn't want it, the members don't want it, the staff don't want it, the trustees don't want it. There is no desire for that whatsoever.
But I think what's in there is a flexibility so that people who've been there and had licensable activities that have effectively finished at or by 11 can sort of finish drinking up before they go out the door effectively.
That was the recommendation from our
But that's only on Fridays and Saturdays.
Correct.
Otherwise, they're out by 11.
Correct. Now that there has been a counter proposal by Sarah Phillips, which she's got a hand up, so I'm going to hand over to Sarah and unmute.
David first, because David had his hand up first, and then Sarah. David.
I thought Mike Stallard had offered to withdraw the 11 o'clock to midnight on Friday and Saturday. That was the basis of my question. It's basically, have you withdrawn that, and can it be reduced to 11 o'clock? Because as I'll speak to on item 8, our main issues are noise from events and exit noise. And it's the exit noise which you are proposing to extend till past midnight, because it means if it's 11 o'clock for the alcohol license, 12 p.m. or midnight for the opening hours, people will simply buy a few drinks at 10:59 and stay drinking till midnight, and then go home. And that's the issue. It's people leaving the club premises late at night, which is causing us quite a bit of grief. This also, the actual notice that was put on the tree for the public to know that the license application was in with the council, actually says that it states the notice. This license is intended to replace the existing club premises certificate, which holds the same hours and licensable activities. Well, it doesn't, because the hours are being extended to midnight. And in the 2010 licensing committee hearing, the subcommittee hearing, they rejected that. And we've been living relatively peacefully with noise just after 11. Now they're trying to push through to midnight. And I'm objecting to that and just asking Mike Stallard, did he not offer to reduce that to 11 o'clock? If so, I and plenty of my neighbours will be quite happy. Thank you, Chair.
I have absolutely no problem with removing that midnight request for Friday and Saturday.
Okay, so opening hours will be till 2300 Fridays and Saturdays.
And what's more, I suggest that we have drinking up time till 11:15 and everybody out by 11:30. That would be my recommendation. I don't know if that's a licensable term that you're
I mean, sorry, no. What you've done is you've applied in terms of alcohol. You've applied till 11.
Yes.
Up to Fridays and Saturdays. So the upshot is that you could, and because you've done opening times to midnight, you could go down to either 11:15 or 11:30 if that's what you propose.
We'd be very happy with 11:15.
Obviously, it's up to the committee which they feel like granting, if that's the way they go.
Sarah is very keen to say something.
It was about drinking up time, and Mike and I had a conversation the other day where I was quite exercised about people being offside as quickly as possible. I know that drinking up time doesn't apply in the current legislation, but it's a discretionary thing. And Mike had agreed that it would be, at the moment, people have a half an hour to be gone, and he agreed that it would be a quarter of an hour. And I thought that was quite acceptable and realistic, that people be off-site and be seen off-site within a quarter of an hour. So I'm not sure if Mike is now wanting some flexibility till 11:30 or from what Mike just said. So through the chair, I'd like to just check that again.
I think the reality is that practically for all evenings at the club, by 11 o'clock, most of the people are out of the club anyway. We'd be very happy to say that by 11:15, people have to leave the club. I suppose when I mentioned 11:30, I suppose I was merely reflecting some reality that if we say 11:15, I guess by the time everybody's off and it's absolutely peaceful, that I suppose it might be 11:30 by then. But I'm saying we'll get everybody out by 11:15. And that's what the instructions to the security guys will be. Very happy for that.
So, Sarah?
This is something which I haven't put anywhere, but so it may be out of order to raise it. But it's that at the moment, the club has limited hours because of COVID, but all the drinking is outside, which means that there's a lot more noise nuisance outside because the children who it had been agreed wouldn't be in the field opposite our windows are displaced by their parents. Their parents are now using that area for drinking, and the children don't want to be on top of their parents. So if as at the moment, the closing time is usually 9:30. On one night it's 9. On one night it's 9:30. Then I don't know if this is germane to this discussion, but I would like there to be an understanding that people are, again, it's not just off the premises but off the site, because there's been a nuisance from people hanging around the site and in the past playing ping pong and various other antisocial innocent pursuits. So at the moment the club shuts at 9 or 9:30, and I would ask through you, Chair, that the directors consider that that drinking up time should still be a quarter of an hour afterwards, to stop people hanging around the fields with their last minute drinks.
So I'm unclear about this 9 and 9:30 time now. That we're talking about
this is
just the normal
outside drinking.
or just
Yes.
outside drinking.
Yes.
If I could chip in, since we reopened on July the 10th, we've only opened outside. We haven't opened inside. Out of respect for neighbours, on Friday and Saturday we open 5 till 9. So we're closed at 9 o'clock. On Sundays we have been closing at 7 o'clock on Sunday evenings. We're now extending that to 8 o'clock on Sunday evenings. We've kept the club closed on Mondays, and then on Tuesday, Wednesday and Thursday we're open. On Tuesdays we're open till 9:30, Wednesdays till 9, and Thursdays till 9:30. So we've deliberately very much restricted the hours and brought the closing time forward, because particularly on Fridays and Saturdays there was a large number of people outside at the back of the club, and we felt it wasn't fair to neighbours to have them sitting there till 11 o'clock at night.
So again, I'm stepping in here. Obviously, that's COVID-19 opening, which are different from the full opening and what we're looking at here. So effectively, the committee as a whole is looking at what the hours will be in terms of inside and outside use. If Sarah wants to talk about anything to do with the outside use, go ahead, but perhaps you could do that when you actually do your presentation rather than in a question.
Yeah.
Good. Okay. Any other questions at this stage? Jane?
Am I allowed, it's Mike Hutchins here, am I allowed to ask one question?
Yes, Jane Conlon was just going to ask a question, and then we'll come to you, Mike, okay?
Yeah, okay.
To you first.
Oh, hi, thanks, Chair. I just wanted to ask a little bit more, and I'm just trying to understand the difference between this club certificate and a premises license. And I think I raised this in my submission, that this is a sports club that has a bar which is available for drinking for the people playing sport. And I'm concerned that the move from a club certificate to a premises license is quite significant in terms of the ethos of the club and what we are potentially moving towards, and I know at the moment Mike said there's absolutely no intention of opening at different times, but your comment about the premises license being allowing non-members and the access to them kind of worries me, because I want to maintain it as a sports club with a bar which is used in conjunction with the sports facilities, not a premises which could be used as a pub, could be used, opened up for, you know, for events, for people who aren't members of the club, who, you know, this is a quiet residential area, and I worry about who's going to come to the area and how they're going to use this facility if it's a premises license. But I may have misunderstood the difference between a club license and a premises.
Okay, I better step in here, Councillor Kohler, to assist again. Sorry about this. So club premises certificate is only open to members of the club after a certain period of membership, so for 24 hours, and they're bona fide guests. The club gets into difficulties when they hire out the premises to a third party, because they are not technically bona fide guests. They don't necessarily know all of them. So the only other option between a club premises certificate and another license would be a premises license, which is one that can be open to all. The fact of the matter is that, you know, obviously they've said how they want to proceed with it, but you can see the difficulty they have in trading under a club premises certificate. So that's why they're doing it. Obviously, the committee can consider what your point on that as they deliberate. Okay.
This was exactly the point that Mike Hutchins here. This is exactly the point that I wished to raise. I think that the original licence that we discussed back in 2010 at the licensing committee was members and guests. Now, this is being broadened considerably so that anyone can walk in off the street and buy a drink or another drink or another, and we pay the price of that. And I think that the two are different.
Thank you, Mike. Let's hear what Mike Stallard has to say.
We fully understand that concern, first of all, and trust me, as a members club, we absolutely share those concerns. And you'll see that in the application we have put in there that the club will only be open to members or to non-members who have pre-booked a private event. That's the condition that we put in there. We are not interested in becoming a general pub, a general club where people can walk in. That's not the case. There are certain things that we cannot, obviously we can't discriminate against people. We know what the protected characteristics are. But once you get past from that, we can decide who we serve and who we don't serve. And I assure you that we will be serving members and non-members who have booked private events. So that's what we said.
Am I right in thinking, Mike, that if we didn't have that ability, it would severely restrict the commercial activities which are critical to the club working?
Councillor, you hit the nail on the head, and to be fair, in all my discussions with the residents over the years, they've always been incredibly supportive and understood that as a sports club on our own, we cannot survive. We cannot, we deliberately keep membership of the club is £40 a year, so we keep it extremely affordable. We have hundreds of kids paying normally about £2 or £3 a week for their sport, and the club simply is unsustainable unless we have a significant bar activity.
Or maybe I can again step in. Condition 7 on the application is very clear: club members or otherwise a pre-booked private event. That's all.
Absolutely correct.
So that should deal with Mr. Hutchins' concern there.
I hope so. Again, trust me, the members of the club have no interest whatsoever in changing how the club has operated for a long time. We just want to make sure, at the moment, for example, if we have a wake, then the person who books that wake has to join the club. They then have to make a list of all their guests. It's a cumbersome way of doing things. Far better to have a full license, and we don't have to worry about that type of thing. That's why we're doing it.
Thank you. Jane, you want to come back?
Just to point out that I take your point, but I think the issue of the income generation through the bar and through the upstairs room is the issue of concern. So, and I know you're not doing more now, but as the club gets bigger as it is and it needs more income, then the room could get rented out more. With the premises license, there's nothing to stop. There's nothing in there that would stop it being rented out every night of the week until 10:30, Fridays and Saturdays. It could become unmanageable. And I know there's no intention now, but I'm just worried that the club has managed to cope at the moment with their income generation using a club certificate. So I don't really see the necessity to move it to a premises license and potentially opening up.
Okay, well, we've heard that, and you can come back to that in any presentation. Mike, so do you want to respond?
Only interesting, the club actually is already booked out pretty much every night in the hall upstairs. You have ballroom dancing, fitness, Pilates, karate, all the typical events, community events that you'd expect to have in a hall like that. The Merton Concert Band practices there as well. So, the hall is currently fully booked out, mainly with activities that I think I've never had a complaint about. So again, there's
that's
no
good.
desire to change that.
David, is this a question?
It's actually a statement, but it might be helpful.
We'll leave that to your presentations, okay?
Thank you.
Right.
Well done, Chair.
Right. Do either of my fellow councillors want to ask any questions?
No, all my worries have been addressed, I think. Thank you.
Councillor Cowper?
No, it's. I think I've heard enough to reassure me.
Okay. I have one question, Councillor Mike. Simply this outside drinking, because as I understand it, there's nothing actually detailed about outside drinking in the conditions as we have at the moment. Putting COVID to one side and just moving forward generally, what are you suggesting should be the limits on outside drinking, and because I'd like that to be a condition.
Okay, I suppose if I'm absolutely honest, I'm not asking, or I'm not proposing anything different to what's gone on in the past. Obviously, in winter time, most of the people are inside. People will go outside to have a smoke, perhaps, and take their beer out with them. But I don't think that leads to significant nuisances at the back of the club. And in the summer, again, on a typical Friday or Saturday night, you will have some people sitting outside. We have about 6 or 7 picnic tables outside where people will drink outside. The significant noise issue outside in general, which I think upsets our neighbours more than anything, is the children playing noisily late at night, rather than people sitting outside having a drink. Neighbours, you're more than happy to shake your heads if that's not right, but I think that's the main issue with noise in the fields outside at night. It's not people sitting around the picnic tables having an outside drink. And
okay, well, I've heard your answer, and perhaps in their presentations, the interested parties might make reference to that point.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we'll now move to the interested parties. I had 4 down to speak, but is Mike allowed to speak as well, Amy?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Well, and the Abbots, are they here? Is Hazel here?
Muted.
You're on mute at the moment, the Abbots. I've got Chris Abbott on mute at the moment.
No, that's fine. No, thank you. Thank you. No, I'm listening. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Over to Jane. Jane Collins, do you want to make any further statement?
No, just well, the only thing I'll say, so I think I've talked to you earlier about the whole ethos of it remaining as a sports club and not turning this into a bar premises. But on the point of the outside drinking, I think I mean, where our house is, and with the prevailing wind, we do hear people sitting outside and drinking. And now that there's, and I know it's unusual at the moment, so I understand with COVID, but if people were going to sit outside drinking until 11 o'clock, we can hear it. It comes directly into our into our kind of bedroom window because of the way it angles down and the fact that they're sitting outside at an angle. So I think I would like to propose that there is and I put that in my submission, that there is a condition that there shouldn't be any normal times any outside drinking after 9 o'clock.
Yeah, the norm in across Wimbledon and Merton is usually 10 p.m. as a compromise. Could all parties live with a compromise of 10 p.m.?
Just for me, it would depend how long it takes, because at the moment it shuts at 9, but then there's noise afterwards. So 10 would mean noise outside till 11 probably. So that's why I would prefer 9 o'clock. And it's a very, very open area in that with the field around, it's very open and the noise travels. So it's I would prefer 9.
Okay. Now I should ask, hold on, Sarah, it's just the applicant to respond. You will have a statement in a moment, but Mike, do you want to respond to Jane's points?
What I was hoping to do maybe is listen to all the respondents and then maybe come back.
Okay, of course. Yeah, definitely. Okay, over to you, David, now.
Thank you. My main issue relating to the licence application is noise, and I think we probably established already there are 3 types of noise that seem to affect us. The noise from social events, from parties, discos and so on in the clubhouse, which going on to 11 o'clock at night. The exit noise, especially after those social events. And thirdly, as we've just discussed, the noise from unsupervised children running around the car parks, the field, the streets, and so on. That's already been spoken about, so I won't speak any further about that. But I would like just to say a couple of things about event noise and then exit noise. Event noise first. The Overups, despite they're talking about using the hall for ballroom dancing and for funeral wakes and things like that, which they do, they're actually advertising. The oldruts.club advertises online hall hire, parties, receptions and events. needadisco.com advertises the hall is available for weddings and parties. In the club magazine of June 19, the chairman of the Overups refers to the Upper Hall as a great venue with professional equipment and encourages use for social events. So it is quite an income stream for the club, and they are trying to use that hall as a social event hall. And it's that really affects us late at night. And in my letter, I described the frustrations that we've had with the Overups. We meet with them, we discuss with them, but often the comeback is that the staff and the stewards are unable to cope. There is poor exit signage. Your previous, the subcommittee in 2010 said an A4 notice had to be displayed, but an A4 notice on a cluttered notice board or a painted sign in a car park that's behind parked cars is basically inadequate. So poor exit signage about noise is another issue. Windows and doors of the Overups Club being open when the social events are on in the upper hall is another issue. And I'm very pleased to see Mike Stallard's supplementary about soundproofing. That sounds very promising, and I hope that does come to fruition. But being no doubt, events can be very large. I mean, the last Halloween event had over 300 people, and the bar took over £6,000. That's a lot of beer, that's a lot of noise, and a lot of disturbance. And often the phone was not answered, but we seem to have a proposal from the Overups, a new line put in, so that should be an improvement. We do have meetings, as I've said, and often they are after complaints, but they do remind us that they are just volunteers at the Overups, and we are often frustrated by the promises that are not kept and the noise that we get at night. Can I just move on to my second point, which is about exit noise?
Okay.
Thank you. This is usually after social events, so it is from 11 p.m. onwards. As you've already got the feeling for by what people have said, my neighbours have said, and the photographs, the road is very quiet, and certainly at night sound really does carry. So when you get exit from social events with loud goodbyes, conversations, cars, car horns, taxis, in the car park of the O'Bruts, in the road, outside our bedrooms, even singing, stereos, shouting down the road, the goodbyes, etc., sometimes for a long time. And the spreadsheets that I've added to my letter are what the neighbours have been keeping when we've put in a report or a complaint to the O'Bruts, and it shows 35 occasions between 2003 and the end of 2009 when one or more residents has complained about the noise. And you know, some of those are quite significant. September 2019.
19, okay.
Three households complained about the birthday party noise and rowdy behaviour from 11 to 11:45, with the sorts of noise I've already described. And the ORA reply was the event was a difficult one. Yes, there was rowdy behaviour. At 11 p.m, the party goers would not stop, and the stewards could not cope. Those are all quotes from the minutes of our meeting with the O'Bruts after this, and of course the party spilled out into the street. So, Chair, I do ask that you and the committee, subcommittee, consider us as residents, and within your powers, we thank you that you've agreed, Mike, to keep the closing time to 11 p.m. every evening. That's great. That will help us. But we also ask the committee to keep the club as a members club with a club license and members only hiring the premises and running social events, not making it open to anybody. And also for the committee to retain the 2010 license conditions that were set down. They haven't always been met, but they are set down and they're a good point of reference. And finally, to add any additional conditions you can think of to reduce event and exit noise from the club to improve our lives. Thank you very much.
Thank you, David. Sarah Phillips, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair. What I want to say is it echoes a lot of what Dave Ford has just said, but my experience has been that the so-called burden of dealing with the neighbours and neighbour relations has fallen on really one person. That's what it feels like. There's a lot of good intentions, but there aren't the systems in place to actually follow through. I'm very pleased at Mike's note that he sent round yesterday, which included a fine for loud behaviour and noise complaints that will be added to the letting conditions, and I think that would be a great help. But all throughout this time, I've been conscious that this present board of directors can't bind their successors unless there is stuff actually codified. And I just think the more that we get into the licence, the better it will be, not only for the future of the club, but for those officers at the moment who are doing their level best against the tide of indifference to actually produce a service that is suitable and that takes account of neighbours' needs. And it's for that reason that I raised the drinking up time, and also that I put a number of conditions in my original submission, my original representation, with a time limit on those. And they're very small practical things. And Mike has already addressed some of them, I know, but the time limit I think is important, that within 3 months, there should be a lot of cultural change within the organisation to make people aware of the situation of the club, the fact that it is in a residential area, and to ensure that, because my experience has been that committee members and hirers alike have no idea what the conditions of the licence have been. You know, that's almost like it's Mike's pigeon, is my sort of subjective assessment of it. And this isn't, it's not fair, and it isn't workable. The committee has met, and I've been, you know, a pretty strong attender of the committee, well, the neighbours group, as it were, since 2011. And in that time, none of us have attended all the possible meetings because of death, illness, bereavement, jury service. And it's okay because there's so many of us. And what I'm concerned about is that any relations with the neighbours actually have a standing order or a condition somewhere that it isn't just left to Mike as the Lone Ranger, and if some family difficulty occurs, understandably he can't come and therefore the meetings are held off. And so that's the spirit in which I suggested a number of conditions on page 3 of my representation. And so that's really where I'm coming from. And I completely take the point that the legal officer made about drinking up, but I think I would like to raise it now, and I follow up what Jane said as well, that it is a nuisance to have people drinking up and the children therefore hanging about. And there have been instances, as I said, of people coming on site and using the outside facilities for recreation, you know, till midnight and things. So that's my reason for really wanting to codify as much as possible. And I'm aware that licensing law may not make that possible. And I'm also aware, on the other hand, that the more we can load the conditions, the more useful it is for the people who are trying to enforce them at the moment. So thank you, Chair. That's me, I think. I think you're mute.
I vowed not to make that mistake. Mike, do you want to say anything?
Is that me, Mike Hutchins?
Yeah, Mike Hutchins.
Yes. I would agree with the comments that have been made, but can I just very briefly say that I've attended most of the meetings that I've been invited to with the old Rutlishians, i.e. Mike Stallard, and undertakings have been given. But the problem is, as has already been pointed out, that they often haven't been translated into reality, and that there's nobody seems to have the responsibility of actually doing what the original license from 2010 said, and the undertakings that were given when it was granted. It seems that the getting them off the premises by 11 is all that the people who are hired to run parties and so on do. They just get them out on the street. What they do on the street seems to be of no interest then after 11, when they finish drinking, and there's cars revving and lights being flashed and horns, as has been mentioned, and shouting, and groups wandering about, and bottles in my front garden. This hasn't been mentioned, but one of the litter problems has been considerable, and it is reflected after every event. The amount of plastic then appearing in the front garden that needs to be picked up, because no one else is going to pick it up for me. I'd better stop there, I think, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Okay, Mike Stallard, over to you now.
Thanks very much for that. Some responses there, if I possibly could. First of all, many of you have been kind enough to give me some praise for the work we tried to do with the residents over the years, and I genuinely do think that the relationship between the club and the residents is an awful lot better than it could be because of the goodwill on both sides. I guess what perhaps residents don't see is the fact that we do turn down a lot of events if we fear that they will end up being too noisy or too difficult to control. So, for example, 18th and 21st birthdays now, we no longer take hirings for those. And if there's any issue, if we have any issue that we don't trust the hirer, we don't know the hirer, we don't trust the hirer, then we don't hire the hall. Interestingly, in the year from March to March, the hall was hired out 34 times on Fridays and Saturdays. So it was hired out for about a third of the number of days that it could have been for activity. And of those 34 events, 14 were events like quiz nights, comedy nights, annual dinners, AGMs, things like that, which I would describe as, they're non-party events, they're not discos, they're not anything. So it was about 20 events over the 52 weeks where there is a potential for noise and disruption. And again, I can't emphasize enough, we have no intention of significantly increasing that sort of level of hiring out at the weekends. We don't think it's sustainable. We're not looking to. David is right, we do advertise the premises because the income from those events is important to us, but we're not trying to fill every Friday and Saturday with events. And I think the evidence of that is the fact that last year there were 34 events across the entire year on both those nights. And of those, only 20 could be described as potential noise. Any party, we hire 2 professional security guards. Now, Mike is right. We do have a problem that the security guards have authority on the premises. Once those people hit the street, Poplar Road, apart from encouraging them to walk away quickly and leave the area, we have no authority over those people. And that's frustrating. It's frustrating. If we just stop them making a noise in our car park and they then make a noise in the road, I fully appreciate that that is frustrating. And if there's any more that we can do on that, any more experience we can buy in from other people, then we would be very happy to do that. In terms of the fact that much of the work is being focused on myself as bar and lettings manager, I would agree with that. We've just set up a new board of trustees. We have 12 trustees, and I've asked 2 very local trustees, one who lives in Circle Gardens and one who lives just over the back of the club. They're now going to join me on the new subcommittee. So residents in future will see, well, hopefully all 3 of us, but certainly we'll meet new trustees who will also share and make sure that the issues that residents bring up are spread across the club far more. And I emphasise both these trustees are extremely local and will understand the issues that the residents currently face. What else we got there? Litter. This is not an adversarial position. We've never had significant adversarial issues with our neighbours, and I don't want to. But I think to characterise, you know, a Saturday morning after a Friday night party or a Sunday morning as a Saturday after a Saturday party with litter strewn all over Poplar Road, I really don't think that's a fair characterisation, and I don't accept that.
Okay, thank you. Do any of my fellow councillors want to ask any questions of the interested parties? Councillor Curtin.
Thank you, Chair. I'd just like to ask Mike, just an idea really, if he could organise a litter pick with some of the younger players after events, you know, that would be an activity for them to do.
I think that's an excellent idea. It'll be interesting to see which ones volunteer for that. We also have we're very lucky. We have a resident in Poplar Road and a member who very kindly does do a lot of litter picking around all the hedges around the club, and you'll see him often, well, many days a week going around litter picking. But I think it's a great idea. Try and involve some of the youngsters. They all say they care for the environment. Maybe they could show it.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, Councillor Calver.
Yes, I thought the idea of banning 18 to 25-year-old parties, if I heard that right, was a very good idea, and it's a similar thing to what has been done at the South Wimbledon Community Centre when events are able to restart, where they only have children's parties, and very successful they are too. But I quite go along with the banning the 21st birthday parties, etc., etc.
18th and 21st. Even we found in the past that even with members, with families of long standing, it was never the members or their kids that were the problem.
No.
You don't know that they invite and then their friends invite them, and we couldn't be having that. So we just banned them.
I have three quick questions. First one, the issue with children and the noise from that, which probably isn't an issue for licensing, but is it something you can offer any reassurances on how you will address what is clearly an issue for residents?
It is. It's one I recognise. But when we met week before last, one of the things that we talked about was establishing a proper semi-formal residents' charter, which both parties could, in inverted commas, sign up to. And I've already spoken to some of my fellow trustees to say part of that charter has to be control of children's noise, particularly on Friday and Saturday nights, once the cricket is finished, at say 8 o'clock, and where those kids end up playing. And I think we're moving towards roping off areas, bringing the kids behind the club so that them running around does not affect the residents of Poplar Road.
Okay, thank you. So I can feel confident that you're going to move forward on that, outside the licensing perspective.
If we don't, I know it's not a licensable activity, and that's why I didn't put it in my submission. But we can't keep annoying the neighbours week after week with children's noise, and not pay attention to that and not put something in place to stop that.
And not face the risk of a review. Yeah.
Definitely. And we've committed to do that within 3 months. Now, it won't be next week, but we'll do that within 3 months.
Okay, thank you. Secondly, I suspect I'm now in a minority of one, but I'll say it anyway. When I looked at the application, I thought everything stopping at 11 but closing at 12 was quite a clever way of meaning that people went away in dribs and drabs. They didn't all charge out at the same time. So I thought it would actually help with the noise issues. But are you all of the view, no, it can't, it won't do? What's your view first? I'm sure this is to you, not everyone else. Sorry.
My view?
Oh no, it's to the interested parties.
Oh, thank you, Chair. If I may, I can respond to that. In the past, when there have been temporary events licenses to 12 o'clock, then that's when the noise spills out. Basically, after an event, some people would have left early, but most people are leaving at the designated time, and it's about 11 to 11:15. But if it's a 12 o'clock tens, then it's 12 to 12:15.
But forgive me if I'm wrong, but doesn't the tens not allow you to serve drinks later or not as a tens? So we're not, it strikes me as you've got a better solution here if they're not serving drinks rather than getting a tens where they can.
I'm not certain, Chair, if you're asking me that question.
Well, all of you, really. It's just musing on it. It seemed to be a better solution than a tens, which gave them a longer time for selling drinks. It strikes me as a good compromise.
My view is, without any tested thing, that's quite to me, that seems quite a dangerous assumption without it being tested out somewhere.
Mr. Chairman, can I come in?
Of course you can.
Mike Hutchins here.
Yes, of course you can.
Just very briefly, I think that would be disaster. This is a quiet residential road. It's tree-lined. It has grass borders. And here we are saying you can still go on drinking till 12 o'clock. That is not appropriate, and it won't help this road. Thank you.
Okay. And my last point was, it strikes me as I was very impressed by the committee, and then I saw how it had sort of fallen into disuse and people hadn't turned up. Is there a way, and this might be a legal question, of in the conditions making it core to the sense that there has to be at least 2 committee members at every one of these committees, and if Ruts members at this joint committee, and if not, if the usual people can't attend, a substitute attends. Is that a condition like that even possible, Guy?
Something that I've come across. Normally, you just have the option of meetings set up so that.
Can't hear you.
We can't hear you, Guy. You're very quiet.
Oh, sorry.
You're not mute, but you're quiet.
It's okay. I think it's because I didn't have my headphones on. Bear with me. Sorry about that. Yeah, it's not a normal condition. Normally, the condition is that you have committee meetings. It's not one where you normally have a requirement that they have to take place and so many per year. But obviously, you can sort of consider that in your deliberations if you want to. You can't make people meet if they don't want to. That's the difficulty.
No. Okay.
The other part of that, I suppose, is you can't necessarily say that there has to be a substitute if one of the committee members doesn't make it, and so on. But I mean, obviously, if you're saying it's 2 per year, then or maybe 1 per quarter, or whichever, I don't know, but. I'll let you debate that when you go into deliberations.
Okay. Well, yeah. That's good. I think, Mike, you've taken on board how important that committee is to the confidence you want to engender. Sorry, Sarah.
I think that. Sorry. Just point quickly there. I think that's the really telling point about meeting up between residents and the operator. The whole point being that if the operator's up for it, then it means that helps the situation.
Well, yes, and that, may I come in now? Is that,
yes,
have you? Yeah, that was my point really. That not that there has to be a quorum, because we've met very informally, but that there should be almost succession planning, if you like, within the organisation, so that there is that it isn't falling on one person's shoulders, and I don't care how many people come, but if Mike had a domestic difficulty or was unwell or whatever, it should have been possible for somebody else to come along in his place. And I'm meddling in the internal affairs of the club to a certain extent, but I'm saying that I would expect there to be, in this culture change, people who actually are sharing the burden with Mike more than they are at the moment. And that more people own what's going on in terms of the importance of the license, the importance of the licensing conditions, and the privilege they've got of actually having this very nice site with very civilized neighbours, by and large, who wish them well.
Well, yes. And we have a community resource that we want to be successful.
Absolutely.
And this is the way forward. Good, thank you. Right, can we move now? Can I ask for the licence officer for any comments or clarification?
I don't have anything to add unless you've got any questions. I don't have anything to add.
Okay, thank you. And likewise with Guy with the legal side?
Nothing. I think I've given you enough as we've gone through. I suspect there'll be more when we go into deliberations. I will explain that either in the decision letter or if we come back afterwards.
Thank you, Guy. And now we move to the closing statement. So we start with the interested parties.
You want to pick somebody.
I'll pick. So who would like to take it? We have one volunteer. Okay, thank you.
I'm happy to go first, Chair, if that helps.
It's only one of you, so it's going to be you unless anyone else
wants to. Everybody.
You're speaking for everyone, David.
Oh, am I?
Maybe not.
Oh.
I reserve my right here.
Well, David, remembering that you're talking for everyone, far away.
Is that okay with everyone or not?
Well,
If it causes great unrest, I'll
sure-
allow a second one
I'm
too.
sure Sarah
you've
can add
got
something
the
in if she
skills
feels she needs
accordingly.
to.
Thank you, Chair. Okay, just two supplementaries to my main comments here. One issue earlier, I forgot to ask the question in my nervousness. The issue on the license about New Year's Eve and supply of alcohol in the certificate section J, page 10.
I don't want to, David, I don't want to really bring up new issues now. It really is a closing statement on just to sum up.
Okay.
Thank
you, Chair.
To give you some assurance, the New Year's Eve article one is one for all licensed premises. It's
every single one
because of New Year's Eve. It's
right.
universal.
That deals with it. Thank you for that interjection. Right, my conclusion. So thank you. I hope we've demonstrated that the Old Rutlish Association is not just a sports pavilion in a field miles from anywhere. It is a growing business. It is a social sports club in a residential road immediately next to our homes. And whatever has been said by me and by others is not to stop the club having an alcohol license or events, but it is to curtail the worst excesses of it, particularly event and exit and children's noise. And I have shown, and other neighbours have chipped in, that there have been 35 complaints recorded across the years 2013 and 2019 under the conditions of the current licence. So there have been significant times when the licence conditions have been broken.
6 years.
And one of the factors in all of this, and makes us a little bit fearful, is that the club has grown considerably over time. The June 29 magazine of the club boasts that there are now about 2,000 members. The Treasurer's report for the club for the last financial year show that in the 12 months, the bar takings were 299,766. That's well over £250,000 to give you a perspective of size and issue. So obviously, social events and alcohol sales are major income streams for the club, but we're arguing that this should not be to the continuing detriment of local residents. Many of us who are retired have families or are struggling with illnesses, recent bereavement, and so on. But we are privileged to live in this friendly and pleasant road, and we have every good wish to get on with the Old Ruts as neighbours. And as you've heard, we meet with them reasonably regularly. They do a lot of good community and sports events, particularly with children. But the social side of this sports club, with its significant growth, and by its advertising, it looks like intended further growth, will, we believe, and I believe, cause an increased public nuisance by creating more issues affecting our lives and sleep. So we're a bit fearful, Chair, fearful, I think, about the lack of control of the club. And we do thank you for withdrawing the opening hours of the club from 11 o'clock to 12 midnight on Fridays and Saturdays. That is very helpful and reduces our fearfulness. But we do still have concern that by allowing the club the opportunity to host more social events, by allowing it to become an open club rather than just a members club, in effect a pub, will result in increased noise, increased disruption to us, particularly late at night. So I ask the committee to do whatever they can to assist us by reducing the public nuisance aspect of the club. And this would include, in my view, keeping the club license, i.e. it's a club for members and guests only, because that will allow it to retain more control. Secondly, by retaining all the 2010 license conditions so that we have something to point to. And finally, by adding any additional ones which you think will curb event and exit noise. Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Committee.
Thank you, David. Mike, now would you like to make your closing statement? Mike Stallard.
Thank you. First of all, I'd like to thank all the respondents. We've been in, we had a catch-up meeting a couple of weeks ago, and we've had plenty of email correspondence as well. And as I always say, the relationship with our neighbours, I always say, is challenging but supportive, and nothing that I've heard today and in the build-up to this has changed that view at all. We are a very successful local club. We do give sporting opportunities to hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of children, whether it be football, rugby or cricket. We keep our membership fees extremely low. And one of the reasons we can keep our membership fees extremely low, which gives access to more and more kids, is because of the bar activity. Most of our members are, of course, also local residents. Many of them are in the very same streets that we're talking about, surrounding the club. And, we do feel very much part of that local community. We do recognise that there are times when the activities within the club do impact badly on the neighbours. And I hope we've shown over the years that we do try and hold a hand up when things go wrong and try and put things right. I think some of the things we've agreed to in terms of hours, in terms of the increased acoustic soundproofing upstairs, the new committee involving 2 more local trustees, the new hotline phones in the bars, I hope all that shows that we really, really do value that relationship with our local neighbours. We don't try to ride roughshod over, and we recognise our responsibilities.
Thank you, Mike. Well, thank you everybody for taking part. I'd just like to say how impressed I was about the constructive approach everyone took. I really do appreciate that, and I know we're all trying to reach the same solution here to maintain a community club that is still loved and valued by its residents and doesn't cause untoward nuisance to one another. We will now, as a committee, we'll go and meet separately to discuss our decision. And what do I do? We will notify the decision within 5 working days. So you will get a written copy of the decision within 5 working days. So thank you again. And now, if those who aren't on the actual committee depart the scene now, thank you again. Bye-bye.